The call came at 3 a.m. My brother Kailan's voice trembled on the other end of the line, begging me to bail him out of county jail. Again. I rubbed my eyes, already mentally calculating how much of my savings would vanish this time. I'm Remy, and I've spent my entire life trying to be the responsible one. While that might sound admirable, in my family, it's made me the boring sister, the dependable one everyone calls in emergencies, but forgets to invite to celebrations. Please, Rem, Kylan's voice cracked. I messed up. I know I did, but I can't stay here another night. I sighed, already grabbing my keys. What happened this time? Bar fight. Some guy was harassing this girl and I stepped in. Things got out of hand. Of course they did. That was Kylan's specialty, getting involved in situations that got out of hand. But I had to admit, defending someone did sound better than his usual drunk and disorderly charges. The jail was exactly as depressing as you'd expect at this hour. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I counted out $5,000 in bail money, nearly everything I had left after putting a down payment on my condo last month. You're an angel, Rem, Kylan said when they finally released him. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, and his designer shirt was stained with what looked like dried blood. I swear I'll pay you back this time, every penny, like you paid me back the last 3 times. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. He grabbed my hands, his green eyes wide with sincerity. I mean it. I just landed this amazing new job. First paycheck comes in next week. You'll be my first priority. I wanted to believe him. God, I always wanted to believe him. Mum and Dad don't need to know about this, he added quickly. They never do. I started walking toward the exit. Though maybe if they did, they'd finally see. See what? He caught up to me. That I'm not perfect? They'd just blame you somehow. You know how they are. He was right. Our parents had mastered the art of turning every one of Kylan's failures into someone else's fault, usually mine. Why hadn't I been watching out for him? Why hadn't I stopped him from going to that bar? You can crash at my place tonight, I offered, against my better judgment. But just tonight, back at my condo, I made up the couch while Kylan showered. Sophia, my best friend, had texted, "Tell me you didn't bail him out again." I didn't respond. Sophia had made her opinions about my brother crystal clear over the years. This place is really coming together, Kylan said, emerging from the bathroom in borrowed sweats. He wandered around my living room, picking up framed photos and knickknacks. You've done well for yourself, sis. No thanks to having to bail you out every few months, I muttered. He flopped onto the couch, running a hand through his damp hair. I know I've been a burden, but things are different now. This new job, it's going to change everything. I can feel it. I wanted to believe him. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time, my faith in him would finally pay off, and our parents would see that I'd been right to stand by him. Get some sleep, I said, heading to my room. We'll talk more in the morning. But when morning came, Kylan was gone. So was my laptop, my grandmother's antique ring, and the emergency cash I kept in my desk drawer. He'd even taken the spare key I'd stupidly left on the kitchen counter. My hands shook as I called his cell. Straight to voicemail, I called again. And again. You've reached Kylan. Leave a message. I sank to my kitchen floor, the cold tiles pressing against my legs. This wasn't happening. Not again. Not after everything I'd done for him. My phone buzzed, a text from Sophia. Check your online banking. With trembling fingers, I logged into my account. My savings account balance stared back at me. $12.47. He'd cleaned me out completely. Another text from Sophia. I'm coming over. Don't call your parents yet. But I already was, even knowing how this would play out. Mom answered on the 3rd ring. Remy, it's barely 8 a.m. on a Saturday. Kylan stole from me, I blurted out. He took everything. There was a pause, then a sigh. Oh, honey, I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. You know your brother would never... I hung up before she could finish. Tears burned in my eyes as I stared at my reflection in the blank TV screen. The responsible one. the dependable one, the fool who never learned. But something inside me had finally snapped. This time would be different. This time, I wasn't going to let it go. Sophia arrived with coffee and a determined look in her eyes. "We're filing a police report," she announced, setting the cups down on my kitchen counter. "You know I can't do that," I said, wrapping my hands around the warm cup. "He's my brother. He's a thief who just stole your life savings." Sophia pulled out her phone. "How much exactly did he take, including the bail money and what he took from my accounts?" "Almost 30,000. The number felt like a punch to the gut. "Jesus Christ, Remy." Sophia ran a hand through her dark hair. "That's it. We're going to your parents' house. Right now." I knew it wouldn't help, but I let her drive me there anyway. The familiar two-story colonial looked exactly as it always had. Perfect lawn, perfect flowers, perfect facade, hiding all the dysfunction within. Mom opened the door before we could knock. "Oh, good, you've calmed down," she said, as if my earlier call had been nothing more than a childish tantrum. "Come in, both of you. I'm making brunch." Dad was in his usual spot at the kitchen table, reading his tablet. He barely looked up as we entered. "Mom, Dad," I started, my voice stronger than I felt. "Kylan stole $30,000 from me last night, after I bailed him out of jail." Dad finally looked up. "Jail? What happened?" Of course that's what he focused on. "Bar fight, apparently," I said. "But that's not the point. A bar fight?" Mom interrupted, cracking eggs into a bowl. "That doesn't sound like your brother at all. Are you sure you understood what happened?" Sophia made a disgusted sound beside me. "Mrs. Boyd, with all due respect, your son just committed grand theft against your daughter. That should be your concern right now." Mom's hand stilled. "I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. Kylan would never steal. He probably just borrowed it for an investment opportunity. He's very business-minded, you know." "An investment opportunity?" I laughed, the sound harsh and unfamiliar. "He took my grandmother's ring. Was that for business too?" "Well, you should have kept it in a safer place," Dad said, as if that explained everything. I felt something inside me crack. "Are you serious right now? Your son, your precious golden boy, just stole everything I had, and you're blaming me for not hiding my belongings better." "Don't take that tone with us," Mom warned, pointing her whisk at me. "We raised you better than that." "Better than what? Better than telling the truth? Better than expecting my own parents to care when their daughter gets robbed?" Dad set down his tablet with a sharp click. "That's enough, Remy. Your brother is going through a difficult time. He's trying to find his path in life." "And I'm not," I shot back. "I work 60-hour weeks. I just bought my first home. I had savings, actual savings, until your son cleaned me out. But none of that matters because it's always about Kylan." "You've always been jealous of your brother," Mom said softly, shaking her head. "Ever since you were children. We hoped you'd grow out of it." Sophia stepped forward. "Okay, that's it. We're leaving. But first, when Kylan shows up here, because we all know he will, remember this conversation. Remember how you chose to protect a thief over your daughter." "He's family," Dad said firmly. "And what am I?" I whispered. The silence that followed was deafening. We were halfway to the door when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered it, hoping against hope it was Kylan coming to his senses. Instead, my grandmother Gemma's voice crackled through the speaker. "Remy, dear, come see me, right now." "Grandma, I'm kind of in the middle of—" "Now, Remy." Her voice was steel. "There are things you need to know. Things that will explain everything." I looked at Sophia, who nodded. "Go. I'll drop you off." "What things?" I asked into the phone. "Things your parents never wanted you to know," Gemma replied. "About Kylan, about why they treat him the way they do, about why they've never been able to love you the way you deserve." My hand tightened on the phone. Behind me, I could hear Mom calling my name, probably ready to serve her perfect brunch and pretend nothing was wrong. As if my world hadn't just imploded. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I told Gemma. As Sophia drove me away from my childhood home, I watched my parents grow smaller in the side mirror. They stood in the doorway, still perfect, still united, still choosing Kylan. But Gemma's words echoed in my head. Things you need to know. Things that will explain everything. For the first time since finding my empty apartment that morning, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. Grandma Gemma's house smelled like cinnamon and secrets. She was waiting in her favorite armchair, a leather-bound photo album in her lap. Her silver hair was perfectly styled as always, but her hands trembled slightly as she gestured for me to sit. "Tea?" she asked, though a steaming cup already waited for me. "Grandma, what's going on? What do you know about Kylan?" She opened the album, flipping through pages until she reached a particular photograph. It showed my mother, much younger, standing beside a man I didn't recognize. "Your mother was 25 when this was taken," Gemma said quietly. 3 months pregnant with Kylan. The man beside her isn't your father." The room seemed to tilt sideways. "What?" "His name was James, a colleague of your mother's at the advertising agency. They had an affair that lasted nearly a year." Gemma's voice was steady, but her eyes were sad. "Your father never knew. Still doesn't." I stared at the photograph. The man, James, had Kylan's same green eyes, the same sharp jawline. "But how? Dad never suspected. Your mother discovered she was pregnant right after your father got his big promotion, the one that changed everything for them." Gemma took a sip of her tea. She chose security over truth. "James moved away, never knowing he had a son. Your father was so thrilled about the pregnancy he never questioned it. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set down my teacup. And you've known all this time. I caught them together once before she knew she was pregnant. She begged me not to tell. I agreed, thinking the affair would end naturally." Gemma's mouth tightened. "I never imagined she'd trap your father with another man's child." "But why are you telling me now?" "Because I've watched them destroy you trying to protect their secret." Gemma reached for my hand. "They've spent 30 years overcompensating with Kylan out of guilt. Every time they favor him, every time they excuse his behavior, it's because they're terrified of anyone questioning why he doesn't quite fit. And me," my voice cracked, "what about me? You're the child they actually made together, but loving you normally would mean treating you both equally. They couldn't risk the comparison." She squeezed my hand. "It was easier to push you away than face their lies." I pulled my hand back, standing abruptly. This is insane. You're telling me my entire life has been shaped by their guilt over a lie. There's more." Gemma stood, moving to her desk with surprising agility for her age. She returned with a yellowed bank document. "When your grandfather died, he left equal trusts for both his grandchildren. But there was a condition. The money could only go to biological descendants." My heart stopped. "What?" "Your parents have been secretly redirecting Kylan's portion to him through other means. They couldn't let him discover he had no claim to the money." She handed me the document. "Your portion is still there, untouched. They've been hiding its existence from you, claiming the trusts were dissolved years ago." I scanned the document, numbers jumping out at me, numbers with lots of zeros. "How much?" "Enough to change your life." Gemma's eyes glinted. "Enough to make them very, very nervous if the wrong questions were asked." I sank back into my chair, mind racing. "Does anyone else know?" "Just your mother's old lawyer, who helped arrange everything. He retired years ago." Gemma smiled slightly. "But he kept excellent records. Records I've been holding on to, waiting for the right moment." "Why now?" "Because you're finally angry enough to do something about it." She closed the photo album with a snap. "Your brother stole from you. Your parents dismissed it. But now you have something they can't dismiss. The truth." My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Please come home. We can talk about this rationally." I showed it to Gemma, who snorted. "Rationally? That's rich coming from a woman who's built her entire life on an irrational lie." "What should I do?" "That depends." Gemma leaned forward. "Do you want your money back, or do you want something more?" More? Justice, dear, recognition, the power to finally make them see you. I looked down at the trust document again, then at the photograph of my mother and the man who gave Kylan his green eyes. 30 years of favoritism, of gaslighting, of making me feel less than, all because they couldn't face their own lies. I want it all, I said finally. The money, the justice, the truth, everything they've kept from me. Gemma smiled, and for the first time, I saw where I got my strength from. Then let's make a plan. A family reunion? Sophia nearly choked on her coffee. That's your master plan. I spread the documents across my kitchen table, bank statements, trust paperwork, and the photograph Gemma had given me. Think about it. The whole family will be there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all the people Mum and Dad have been lying to for years. And you're sure about this? Sophia picked up the trust document. Because once you do this, there's no going back. They're hosting it next Saturday. I pulled up the family group chat on my phone. Mum's already sent out the invitations. She's trying to smooth things over after what happened with Kylan. Speaking of your thieving brother, any word from him? Nothing. I started organizing the papers into a folder. But he'll show up. He never misses a chance to be the center of attention. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Gemma introduced me to her lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Rachel who specialized in trust litigation. The money is legally yours, Rachel confirmed, reviewing the documents in her downtown office. We can file a petition to access it immediately, but that would tip your hand. I want to wait, I said, just until after Saturday. Rachel nodded. I'll have everything ready. Just say the word. Friday night, Mum called. You are coming tomorrow, aren't you, dear? The whole family's asking about you. Of course, Mum. I kept my voice light. Wouldn't miss it. And you're feeling better about everything? Much better. I thought about the folder sitting on my desk, loaded with 30 years of secrets. I've gained some perspective. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. Sophia helped me dress, a crisp blue sundress that made me look professional and put together. You're sure you don't want me to come? This is something I need to do alone. I hugged her tight. But keep your phone on. The family was already gathering when I arrived. Aunt Linda's famous potato salad sat next to Uncle Mark's grilled chicken. Cousins chased each other around the backyard, while the adults clustered in groups catching up. Mum rushed over immediately. You came! She tried to hug me, but I stepped back. Where's Dad? Grilling with your uncles. She frowned at my movement. Honey, about last week. Later, Mum. I spotted Gemma arriving through the side gate. We'll talk later. The next hour was excruciating. I made small talk, picked at my food, and watched the door. Finally, right on cue, Kylan strolled in. Sorry I'm late, he announced, immediately drawing everyone's attention. Traffic was horrible. Mum and Dad flocked to him, all smiles and hugs. No mention of the theft, of course. No questions about where he'd been. I caught Gemma's eye across the yard. She nodded slightly. Actually, I said, raising my voice, I'm glad you're here, Kylan. I have something to share with everyone. The conversations quieted. Mom's smile faltered. Remy, Dad warned, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time. I pulled out the folder I'd been carrying. I recently learned some interesting family history, about trusts and secrets and lies. Mom went pale. Remy, please. Did you know Grandpa left trust funds for his grandchildren? I addressed the gathering crowd, but only for his biological grandchildren. Kylan frowned. What are you talking about? There weren't any trust funds. Actually, there were. I started passing out copies of the documents. Mum and Dad just didn't want anyone asking why you weren't eligible for yours. The backyard erupted in murmurs as people began reading. Aunt Linda gasped. Uncle Mark stopped grilling. You see, I continued, pulling out the photograph, Mum had a secret back in the day, a secret named James. Kylan snatched the photo, his face draining of color as he stared at the man who shared his eyes. That's enough, Dad shouted, but it was too late. Is this true? Aunt Linda demanded, waving the trust document. "Did you lie to all of us?" Mom was crying now. "We were trying to protect our family." "By stealing from your daughter," Gemma's voice cut through the chaos. "By favoring a child born of adultery over your own flesh and blood." Kylan looked like he might be sick. "Mom? Dad? What is this?" But our parents had no answers, only tears and stammered excuses as 30 years of deception crumbled around them. I walked over to Kylan, who was still staring at the photograph. "Now you know why they always protected you, why they excused everything you did, even stealing from me." He looked up, and for the first time in our lives, I saw real fear in his eyes. "The trust fund is mine," I said quietly. "All of it. And I'm done letting this family treat me like I'm worth less than you." The backyard had gone silent, waiting to see what would happen next. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. "Now," I said, "let's talk about paying me back." "This is ridiculous," Kylan sputtered, trying to regain his composure. "You can't just show up and drop bombs like this. These documents could be fake." "Could they?" I turned to our mother. "Mom, want to tell everyone if they're fake?" Mom sank into a patio chair, mascara running down her cheeks. "I was young. I made a mistake." "The mistake wasn't the affair," Gemma cut in. "The mistake was lying to everyone for 30 years and punishing Remy for your guilt." Aunt Linda stepped forward, still clutching the documents. "All those times you told us Remy was difficult or jealous, you were just covering your tracks, weren't you? And the trust fund?" Uncle Mark joined in. "Dad left that money for his grandchildren. You had no right to hide it." Dad finally found his voice. "We did what we thought was best for this family." "Best for the family?" I laughed. "You mean best for your reputation, best for your perfect son who isn't even yours." "Watch it," Kylan growled, stepping toward me. "Or what?" I met his gaze. "You'll steal from me again? Hard to do that when everyone knows what you really are." Our cousin Sarah, who'd always idolized Kylan, spoke up. "You stole from her." "It wasn't like that," Kylan protested. "I was going to pay it back." "With what money?" I pulled out my phone, showing the banking app. "You cleaned out my accounts. $30,000, Kylan. Plus Grandma's ring. Where is it?" He shifted uncomfortably. "I pawned it." The collective gasp from the family was audible. That ring had been a family heirloom. "Of course you did." I turned back to our parents. "And let me guess, you'll find a way to excuse that too?" "Remy, please." Mom stood up, reaching for me. "We can work this out privately, as a family. We stopped being a real family the moment you chose your lie over your daughter." I stepped back from her reach. Now everyone knows the truth. About Kalan's father, about the trust fund, about everything. "What do you want?" Dad's voice was desperate now. "Money? We can figure something out." "I want what's legally mine." I nodded toward Gemma, who pulled out her phone. "My lawyer is ready to file the paperwork for the trust, unless you'd prefer to handle this through the courts." Mom went even paler. "The courts? Fraud is a serious crime," Gemma said calmly, "especially when it involves trust funds." Kylan suddenly lunged forward, grabbing my arm. "You can't do this to me, to us." Several relatives moved to intervene, but I held up my hand. "Actually, I can, and I will. Unless what?" He released my arm. "Unless you sign a repayment agreement for everything you stole, with interest." "I don't have that kind of money." "Then I guess you better find it." I smiled sweetly. "I'm sure Mom and Dad will help." They always do, don't they? The backyard had become a theater, with relatives watching the drama unfold like a live soap opera. Some were filming on their phones, others whispering among themselves. "And what about us?" Dad gestured between himself and Mom. "What do you want from us?" "I want you to admit what you did, to everyone. No more lies, no more excuses." I looked around at our assembled family. "I want them all to know exactly who you are and what you've done." Mom broke down completely then, sobbing into her hands. Dad looked lost, his perfect family facade crumbling before his eyes. Kylan stared at the photograph of his real father again. Did you ever plan to tell me? We wanted to protect you, Mum whispered. Protect him, I scoffed. You enabled him. You turned him into this because you couldn't face your own guilt. Aunt Linda started gathering her things. I think we should go. Clearly, this family has a lot to work through. Other relatives followed suit, but not before giving me supportive hugs or whispering quick apologies for never seeing the truth before. As the backyard emptied, I turned to my parents one last time. My lawyer will be in touch about the trust fund, and Kylan, I faced my brother, or whatever he was to me now. You have 30 days to start paying me back, or I'll press charges for theft. You wouldn't, he challenged, but his voice wavered. Try me. I gathered my things, ready to leave. I'm not the pushover you all thought I was. Not anymore. Gemma linked her arm through mine as we walked toward the gate. Behind us, I could hear Mom's sobs, Dad's attempts to comfort her, and Kylan's angry demands for more answers. But for the first time in my life, their drama wasn't my problem. Ready to go? Gemma asked. I nodded, stepping into the sunlight. Ready for whatever comes next. 3 days after the reunion, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Relatives I hadn't heard from in years suddenly wanted to check in. Mum called hourly until I blocked her number. Dad sent lengthy emails that I deleted without reading. Sophia sat across from me at our favorite coffee shop, scrolling through the family group chat she'd been added to by my cousin Sarah. Your Aunt Linda is going off. Apparently, she's demanding your mum step down from organizing the annual charity gala. The one Mom's been running for 15 years? I sipped my latte. That's got to hurt. Serves her right. Sophia looked up. Heads up, incoming. I turned to see Kylan pushing through the coffee shop door, looking considerably less polished than usual. His designer clothes were wrinkled, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. We need to talk, he said, pulling up a chair without asking. About your repayment plan. Great. My lawyer drafted an agreement. About everything. He ran his hands through his unkempt hair. I found him, James, my real father. That got my attention. How? Facebook. Wasn't hard. He lives in Seattle now. Kylan's voice cracked. He had no idea I existed. When I called him... You called him? Yesterday. He's flying in tomorrow. Kylan laughed bitterly. Turns out he always wanted kids. Mum told him she'd had a miscarriage. Sophia whistled low. Your mum's really going for gold in the lying Olympics. I know I screwed up, Kylan said, ignoring her. The money, the ring, I was desperate. This business opportunity came up. Save it, I cut him off. I don't care about your excuses. Do you have my money or not? He pulled out an envelope. 5,000. It's all I could get together so far. And the ring? He looked down. I can't get it back. The pawn shop already sold it. The last piece of my grandmother, gone forever. I took a slow breath. Then you better find a way to pay me its value. That ring was worth 12,000. 12,000? He went pale. Remy, please, I'm trying here. Trying wouldn't have been necessary if you hadn't stolen from me in the first place. I took the envelope. 25,000 to go, plus interest. Mum and Dad can't help anymore, he blurted out. The family's freezing them out. Dad's partners at the firm are calling for a review of his position. Mum's lost half her charity board. Sounds like karma to me, Sophia muttered. My phone buzzed. A text from Gemma. Your trust fund paperwork is filed. Meeting with the bank tomorrow at 10. Look, I told Kylan, standing up. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them. Just like Mum and Dad get to live with theirs. They're still our parents, he protested. Are they? Because it seems like everything I knew about our family was a lie. I gathered my things. Figure out how to pay me back, Kylan. That's all I care about now. What about James? He grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. Don't you want to meet him? He's technically your... I don't know what he is to you. He's nothing to me. I pulled free. Just like you're nothing to me anymore. Sophia followed me out, leaving Kylan sitting alone with his $5,000 in cash and a lifetime of lies unraveling around him. That was intense, she said as we walked to my car. You okay? Before I could answer, I spotted Mum across the street, getting out of her car. Remy, she called out, please, just talk to me. You should go, I told Sophia. This isn't going to be pretty. Mum hurried across the street, ignoring the honking cars. I've been trying to reach you for days. I blocked your number for a reason. I know you're angry, she said, reaching for me, but we're still family. We can fix this. Fix what exactly? I stepped back. The 30 years of lies, the way you treated me, the fact that you let your golden boy steal from me and did nothing. I'm your mother. No, I said quietly. You're just the woman who gave birth to me, and then spent my entire life punishing me for not being him. Tears filled her eyes. That's not true. I love you. Maybe you do. But not enough to be honest. Not enough to protect me. Not enough to be a real mother. A crowd was gathering, people stopping to watch the drama unfold on the sidewalk. James is coming tomorrow, she whispered. Please, don't let him destroy what's left of our family. I laughed, the sound harsh and cold. You destroyed this family all by yourself, Mom. I just exposed the wreckage. I got in my car, leaving her crying on the sidewalk. In my rearview mirror, I saw Kylan emerge from the coffee shop, watching me drive away. Some families, I realized, aren't worth saving. The bank meeting was brief but life-changing. As I signed the final documents transferring the trust fund into my name, the banker smiled. Congratulations, Ms. Remy. You now have access to your full inheritance of $850,000. I nearly dropped my pen. I'm sorry, what? With compound interest over 30 years, she explained, the original amount has grown significantly. Outside the bank, I called Gemma. Did you know? About the amount? Of course. I could hear her smile. Your grandfather was a smart investor. He wanted his grandchildren taken care of. Children, I corrected, not grandchildren, just me. Just you, she agreed, the rightful heir. My phone buzzed with another call, Dad this time. I almost declined it, but something made me answer. James is here, he said without preamble. He wants to meet you. I told Keelan. Please, Dad's voice cracked, just come to the house, one last time. I found myself driving there against my better judgment. Sophia's words echoed in my head. You don't owe them anything, but maybe I owed myself closure. The house was quiet when I arrived. In the living room, Mom sat rigid on the couch beside Dad. Kylan paced by the window, and in the armchair sat a man I'd only seen in photographs. Older now, but with those same green eyes. James stood when I entered. You must be Remy. Must I? I remained by the door. I'm not sure who I am in this family anymore. Remy, Mom started, but James held up his hand. Let me speak, Edith. He turned back to me. I want you to know I had no idea. About Kylan, about any of it. If I had... You'd have what? I asked. Swooped in and saved us all? Changed the last 30 years? Maybe. He shrugged. We'll never know. But I'm here now, trying to understand. Kylan stopped pacing. He wants to make things right. Right? I laughed. There is no making this right. Mom lied to everyone. Dad lived in denial. You stole from me. And now what? We're supposed to have some big happy family reunion because biological dad showed up. We were trying to protect, Mom began. If you say protect this family one more time, I swear to God. I took a deep breath. The trust fund cleared today. Do you want to know how much money you kept from me? Dad flinched. Remy, please. $850,000. I watched their faces pale. That's what your lies cost me. That's what you gave to him instead. James stepped forward. I have money too. I want to help. I don't want your money, I shouted. I don't want anything from any of you. Don't you get it? This isn't about money anymore. It's about 30 years of making me feel worthless because you couldn't face your own mistakes. The room fell silent. Outside, a lawnmower droned. Someone's kid laughed. Normal life going on while my world kept shattering. I filed a police report this morning, I said quietly, about the theft. Kylan stumbled back. You wouldn't. I warned you, 30 days to start repaying me. You gave me 5,000 and excuses. I pulled out my phone, showing them the police report number. The detective is very interested in the pattern of family cover-ups. We can fix this, Mom pleaded. James can help with the money. It's not about the money. I turned to James. You seem like a nice man. Maybe you would have been a better father than the one I got. But I don't need a father anymore. I don't need any of you. Remy, Keelan stepped toward me. You're my sister. No, I said softly. I'm not. I'm just the person you stole from. The one who finally stopped letting this family treat her like she didn't matter. I walked to the door, then paused. The detective will be in touch, Kylan. Mom, Dad, I'm sure the country club will love this latest scandal. And James? I met those familiar green eyes. I hope you find whatever you're looking for, but it's not here. As I drove away, my phone exploded with messages. I ignored them all, except one from Gemma. Come over, I made pie. In my rearview mirror, I could see them all spilling onto the front porch. The parents who failed me, the brother who wasn't my brother, and the father who came too late. But ahead of me lay something better. Freedom, truth, and the knowledge that I'd finally stopped letting their lies define my worth. Sometimes, I realized, the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth, it's walking away and letting karma do the rest. Gemma's kitchen window offered a perfect view of the moving truck in my parents' driveway. We watched as workers carried out boxes and furniture while sharing her famous apple pie. The firm asked Dad to retire early, I said, cutting another slice. Apparently, fraud allegations and family scandals are bad for business. And your mother? Lost her position at the charity. They're downsizing to a condo. I smiled. Karma's been busy. My phone buzzed. A text from the detective. K. Boyd turned himself in this morning. Wants to make a deal. Good, Gemma said when I showed her. About time he faced consequences. Sophia burst through the back door, waving a newspaper. Have you seen this? The Society page headline read, Prominent families fall from grace, fraud, theft, and hidden heirs exposed. Mum must be devastated, I said, but found I didn't care anymore. Any word from James? Left town yesterday, Sophia reported, stealing a bite of my pie. Apparently finding out your long-lost son is a thief wasn't the heartwarming reunion he hoped for. The doorbell rang. Gemma answered it, returning with a small package. It's from that detective. Inside was my grandmother's ring, still beautiful despite everything. A note read, Recovered from pawn shop. Owner cooperated when charges were mentioned. I slipped it on, feeling whole again. Think they'll ever forgive me? Forgive you? Gemma scoffed. For what? Telling the truth? For destroying their perfect family image. They destroyed that themselves, Sophia said firmly. You just stopped covering for them. My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Ms. Remy? A woman's professional voice. This is Andrea from Riverside Publishing. We received your manuscript submission. I put the phone on speaker as she continued. Your story about family secrets and redemption. We'd like to offer you a contract. After the call ended, Sophia squealed and hugged me. A book deal, see? Everything really does happen for a reason. Speaking of reasons, Gemma pulled out an envelope. I have something for you. Inside was a key and a deed. What's this? This house, she said simply. I'm moving to that beachfront condo I've always wanted, and I want you to have this place. A real home with real family memories. Gemma, I can't. You can, and you will. She squeezed my hand. It's time this house belonged to someone who understands the value of truth. Through the window, I watched my parents supervising the movers, looking small and defeated. Mom glanced up, catching my eye. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then she turned away, and I felt the last thread of our old relationship snap. The detective says Kylan's agreed to full restitution, Sophia read from her phone. Plus community service. Think he'll actually change? Does it matter? She grabbed more pie. You've got your money, your ring, a book deal, and now a house. You won. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like finally being free. The moving truck pulled away, taking with it 30 years of lies and pretense. Mum and Dad got into their car without looking back. You know what this place needs? Sophia gestured around Gemma's. No, my kitchen. A housewarming party, with only people who actually care about you. First, Gemma held up her fork. We need to talk about your book. I have some stories about your mother's childhood that would make excellent chapters. My phone buzzed one last time, an email from Dad. I'm sorry we failed you. I'm sorry I failed you. Someday I hope you'll let me try to be the father you deserved. I deleted it without responding. Maybe someday I'd be ready for their apologies. But today was about moving forward, not looking back. So, I said, reaching for the coffee pot. About those stories. Gemma's eyes twinkled. Well, there was this one time your mother tried to run away with the gardener's son. As laughter filled the kitchen, real, genuine laughter, I realized something. Family isn't about blood or secrets or lies. It's about the people who stand by you when the truth comes out. The ones who help you pick up the pieces and build something better. Sophia and Gemma kept talking, their voices warm and real in my new kitchen. Outside, the moving truck disappeared around the corner, taking my old life with it. Good riddance, I thought, and cut another slice of pie. Sometimes the happy ending isn't about forgiveness or reconciliation. Sometimes it's about letting go and finding out who you really are when you're finally completely free.